Good evening, everyone. We will call the City Council meeting for January 3, 2012 to order. First order of business is roll call.
Nordstrom. Here. Mason. Here. Doyle. Here. Sasso.
Here.
Davis.
Here.
Peterson. Here. Roberts.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Wright. Here. Lorente.
Here.
We have quorum.
We have a quorum. Next order of business would be an executive session. If we need one, it appears on review by the City Attorney's Office that we do not need an executive session tonight. Okay. We will move on to the invocation. We'll recognize Pastor Greg Blanc from Calvary Chapel. Everyone, please rise.
Good evening. Great to be here with you again tonight, and just want to say on behalf of the church community that we are very, very appreciative of your dedication to our city. Let's pray. Father, we open this meeting inviting your presence here. We're thankful that you love the people of Rapid City and want what's best for them. And as a community, we're extremely grateful for the men and the women that you have appointed to govern us. Give them wisdom as they carry the weight of knowing that their decisions affect and impact many, many people. Please bless Mayor Quaker, the city council members, the other officials here, and their families as they serve the great people of Rapid City. Let every person in this room feel your peace and your love and your tender touch. Amen. Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the next order of business is to adopt the agenda. We will not have an item 1 tonight, Citizen of the Month, that will be on the next City Council agenda. And in its place, we will be moving items 55 and 56, which is a confirmation of Joel Landin's appointment as City Attorney and administering the oath of office. So that will be the first 2 items on the agenda, and that's to swear in Joel Landin. His family is here tonight, and so we're going to move up that item.
Move to adopt the agenda.
Okay, we have a motion by Davis and a second by Brown to adopt the agenda. Are there any?
I was going to add an item to the agenda.
Okay, my lights aren't working, so I apologize. So we'll do it the old-fashioned way.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to add an item for discussion of length of term meetings for to be set in the wards, and under council items after 56 down.
Thank you. And we'll do that item 56A.
All right. Thank you.
Any additional items for the agenda? Seeing none, we have a motion to approve with moving item 55 and 56 to the beginning and adding 56A regarding length of terms. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries and the agenda is adopted. We will now go to item 55. Mr. Landin.
Second.
We have a motion by Wright and a second by Roberts to approve. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We will now go to the swearing in. Pauline Sumption.
I, Joel Landin, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of South Dakota
against all enemies,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or for the purpose of evasion, that I will faithfully and impartially perform the duties of the office of the City Attorney for Rapid City, South Dakota, according to the law and to the best of my ability. So help me God.
I would also like to use this opportunity to thank Tamara Peer for helping us out over the last several months, for putting her business, she has a mediation business called Bridges. She put her business essentially on hold to step in and help us out. We're very grateful for her assistance, and she brought great perspective to the city attorney's office and served us all very well. And she is not fading quietly into the night, and she's going to continue to be active in the community and will probably be assisting the city in some way in the future. So thank you, Tamara, for your hard work during the transition. And now is the time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at the meeting on any issue not on the agenda, except by placing on the agenda by unanimous vote of the council members present. Do we have any general speaker request forms? Let me see. Okay. We do not have any general public comment items. Did I miss anyone? Okay. We will now move on to items 2 through 35. Can we have a motion to open public comment on 2 through 35, please? Motion by Mason, second by Roberts. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Public comment is now open on items 2 through 35. I'm going to start with several speaker request forms on item 26, and we'll first recognize Charlotte Walling. Charlotte?
Hello, my name is Charlotte Walling, and thanks for letting me speak with you today. I'd just like to take a minute of your time to stress how very important it is for the city to choose wisely when we're choosing our banking options. Just looking at last year's budget, I noticed that our revenues last year were $163 million, including taxes and everything else. When the city takes that money and deposits it into a bank, they can loan out up to 90% of that. That means that up to $146 million of our money gets injected into various places where it can be used to start a business or buy a home or buy an automobile. This means that you, our city council members, have a very important decision to make. You have two basic choices. The first choice is to deposit the money into a large bank where that money will be loaned out to people and businesses all over the world. The second option is to make our city's revenue do double duty by depositing the money into a local bank or credit union where the money will be loaned to local people and local small businesses. It is clear to many of us here tonight that in these hard economic times, the responsible thing to do is to keep the money in our local economy, where it will help local people to buy local homes and make local jobs. Thank you.
And next we'll recognize Marvin Kammerer. Marvin?
Good evening, all of you. I don't live in Rapid City, but my roots go back probably longer than all of you. Pennington County Bank, the old building's still down here. It's where my great uncle, my grandpa, my great grandma, when they had a little money, it's where they banked. When there was a bank shut down across the country with Roosevelt's time, they left them rather on the confused side. They walked those streets. The same street where they used to come and watch rodeos here alongside the Alex Johnson Hotel long before it was there, and the Duhamel. They had the rodeos right in the streets. So through our history, from the time we trail livestock to the Milwaukee yards to put them on trains, you get a check from the buyer or send them further to Sioux City, wherever. A check come back, they brought it back to Rapid City, put it in a local bank. So when I got old enough to start doing a little banking, and now it's pretty much credit union work, we used the same system. Local people that we knew, that my family grew up with, knew. We're extended family, you know, that's what you get when you deal with local banks. We've got some good ones in this state, some in this town. Some of them were started by ranch families. I'm not going to mention any names because I hope that you people, in your wisdom, will see fit to put the public's money at work in local banks and encourage other entities like our federal boys that send money in here to do the same. Because then it's like shopping local. That's what we talk about when we're down there on this street where all this new progress is being built up around there. Shop local. Shop local with the banks too. The big ones can take care of themselves, but they'll damn sure skin us if they have to, and they're the ones that went to the federal government to get bailed out when they overextended themselves. We know the local bank. That's the ones for you people to put all this hard-earned taxpayer money in. It's just good policy. And it's, you know, we've got a lot of banks in this town, but let's use the local banks like we would use the local trade. Let's support the local people. Let's support our community and our state. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kammerer. And now we'll recognize Shirley Frederick. Shirley? Also on item 26.
I'm Shirley Frederick, and I live in Rapid City. Since I retired from the Rapid City schools, I've worked as a volunteer to build our community and to include everyone in the benefits of our community. In looking over the proposed list of depositories, I see an opportunity for Rapid City to do better when it comes to growing our economy and serving more residents. Instead of putting our tax money and other revenues in big banks that send their money out of state and even out of the country, why not place that money in credit unions and local banks that provide loans to students who might want to go on to college, loans to small business owners, loans to farmers who are thinking about their spring planting, loans to students and workers who need better cars, especially cars that will start on a 0-degree day. So I suggest that the council create a small task force to become familiar with state law, develop criteria for depository selection, interview knowledgeable people in the banking sector and business people unable to get loans, and make recommendations to the council about how our money can best be invested in ways that help residents of Rapid City and our area. As a community, we can learn how to divest from the big banks and invest in Rapid City. Thank you.
And we'll recognize Dr. Rebecca Lees. Dr. Lees?
Good evening. My name is Dr. Rebecca Lees, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak briefly. I would encourage the council to consider utilizing our local banks and credit unions as to the utmost of your ability. We all know the last number of years have been very difficult for our country, and the facts are that Wall Street and big banks have conducted their business very unwisely, and they have brought the American public and businesses, and especially Main Street, to their knees. This is very unfortunate, and we have a great city here. I moved here 3 years ago from Pennsylvania, and I'm very impressed with Rapid City, and I love this city. And I must say I'm very impressed with many of the banks that I've dealt with. I made it a point to go around to different banks, and the credit unions and the local banks are extremely friendly and accommodating. And I think that in a state that prides itself in home rule, so to speak, and being independent of the federal government to a certain extent, that it would just make good sense, and it would be great for the people, the farmers, and it would be great for the morale of the city, and it would be good for us economically to invest our money here and to keep our money here and not give it to those big banks, as was said previously, that may ship the money abroad and who have proven that they do not invest their money wisely and that do not use it wisely. I personally have a really big problem with big banks giving CEOs and top people all kinds of benefits and raises and so on, and then treating the public and taking people's homes and the whole thing with the mortgages. Just the whole thing we have seen is just, it's horrible. So we have an opportunity here to invest in Main Street and invest our own people, and I would encourage you to do that. I think it would be really a step in the right direction that would say to all people around the Rapid City area, hey, we're going to really support our people here and keep the money here in South Dakota. Thank you.
Recognize Kathy Jarvis. Kathy?
Hi, my name is Kathy Jarvis, and I'm here in support of all of the local banking, but I am making a proposal that we do our due diligence and we look at where we are in terms of our TIFs, which proliferated our banking with each of our institutions here in Rapid City. The Federal Reserve is ready to go through another series of stress tests with our banks nationally that I think impacts our decisions that we should make here. In that specific is to take our TIFs and to make an audit where we are in terms of the incrementations, and just where we can consolidate would be wise at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll recognize Robert Rivers. Mr. Rivers?
Good evening. My name is Robert Rivers. I would like to say that I find it curious that this list of institutions for depositing municipal funds includes only one credit union, as it appears only 2 local banks. Even if we included the 4 state or regional banks, this total so far is still less than half the number of national and international banks. So my question is, why do these big banks get to profit from our municipal funding when there are plenty of local institutions where this money could go, where it would surely have a more positive impact on the local economy and community? I've been told that, quote, South Dakota codified law requires that any depository institution that the district uses have the ability to collateralize the deposits with U.S. government bonds. This leaves me wondering what our local officials may be doing or be willing to do to effect a change in this policy whereby local tax monies can be able to benefit the taxpayers more directly. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll recognize Tom Kadis.
I have a handout, I don't know. I'm Tom Kadis, a resident of Rapid City, and for the past 23 years, I've headed a small business development firm that has funded about 50 small businesses and nonprofit organizations, primarily in Rapid City, the Indian reservations in western South Dakota. And I found as I started going around to the various banks, trying to help my clients secure financing, that when we'd go to the big banks, they almost always required about 40% equity up front for a startup or an expanded small business, which made it virtually impossible for most of these small businesses to launch. But as we went to the local banks, almost always they were much more open to negotiation, usually requiring an equity of no more than 10%. And these are on SBA and BIA guaranteed loans, so the banks themselves are risking only about 10% to begin with. But even with that 10%, I found our big banks here were basically not very user-friendly to the small business community. I also feel that banks, financial institutions, credit unions, and businesses should be good public citizens. And we do indeed have many good public citizen businesses in the community. This last summer, we had an international conference in Rapid City. An all-volunteer group. We hosted 160 visitors from throughout the United States and even internationally. That resulted in 4 days about an $80,000 impact, economic impact on Rapid City. When I went to the banks, to the credit unions, to the businesses to support that conference, none of the big banks came through. To their credit, Highmark Credit Union did. So did Black Hills Corporation. So did Stan Adelstein. So there are people that come through, and then there are others that sit on their laurels. And I question, when I look at the 19 institutions that are proposed to be depositors, why we have so many large banks, and even an international one, and only one of the 10 credit unions. I don't understand what the criteria is, or if you even have criteria, but if you do have criteria, I think it's need for a serious review. If you don't, I would suggest a task force, a very rapid turnaround, maybe 6 weeks, of a citizen and council committee to come up with a rationale for investing the taxpayers' money. Thank you very much.
And we'll recognize John Buxell. John?
Hello. First off, I just want to say thank you to everybody up here. I know you guys sacrifice a lot of time from your family and stuff. I just wanted to speak to just say it's pretty simple. The big banks have been corrupted. They continue to be corrupted. We need to keep our money local and help local businesses and families within our community. It's as simple as that. Have a great night.
Thank you. We do not have any additional speaker request forms for items 2 through 35. Did I miss anyone? If not, can we have a motion to... If you come forward and identify yourself for the record. Oh, I'm sorry. Otis Osborne.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity. I've had an excellent opportunity to be a part of the local community for a couple of years. I'm stationed at Ellsworth Air Force Base and have had a tremendous experience and wealth of information being presented with the Occupy Rapid City group. I know there's constant labels affiliated with them, but they're really an independent and individual people that are really well informed and willing to share their insights and knowledge to help benefit the local community. And one of the ways that I've really had an easy time understanding through some of their educational outreach opportunities is to deposit money in locally owned and operated banks. It makes sense because that money's also going back to the local community, which in a multitude of ways will help support our local economy when there's not being enough grants or other financial privileges granted by federal government or state government. So it just makes sense to invest in our own infrastructure, our own community, and provide a very robust way of making that possible. And through supporting our local financial institutions, it seems like a really great opportunity. Thank you for your time. Good evening.
Do we have a motion to close public comment for items 2 through 35? So moved. We have a motion by Mason and a second by Peterson. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. We are now on the consent items, items 2 through 35. Are there any items the council would like to remove for separate consideration? Please hit your light. We'll first go to our City Finance Officer, Pauline Sumption. Pauline?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to remove number 4 from consent so that we can add the additional patio space that they want.
And Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. I wonder if we can remove number 26 and number 50.
Okay. All right, we're not to item 50 yet, but when we get there, we'll consider that individually. So far, we have items 4 and 26. Any additional items? Seeing none, can we have a motion to approve the consent items with the exception of 4 and 26? So moved. We have a motion by Mason and a second by Sasso. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. And we're on to item number 4. And Jordan Mason, can you read this into the record for us?
Item number 4 is MG Oil Company doing business as Market Square, and this is for a retail on-off sale malt beverage license with video lottery transfer to Uncle Sam's East on 1120 East North. And I will yield the floor.
We'll go to our Finance Officer, Pauline Sumption.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It needs to read for 1624 East St. Patrick Street, Suite 103, and outside patio. So that just needs to be added.
All right, do we have a motion to proceed with setting for hearing? As amended. So moved. Okay, motion by Nordstrom, second by Mason. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Item 26, Jordan.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 26 is to approve resolution number 2011 TAC 171 designating official depositories, and I will yield the floor again.
Okay. Do we have a motion or discussion? We'll go to Richie Nordstrom. Richie?
Thank you, Mayor. If I may start off with a motion, and if I get a second, I'd like to yield the floor, maintain the floor, excuse me. Mayor, if I may introduce a motion. Okay, thank you. What I'd like to do is, as in my motion, is that we form an ad hoc committee or a task force to oversee the implementation of a protocol for the developing of the institutions of depository. And I'll leave my motion as that.
Okay, we have a motion by Nordstrom and a second by by Laurenti. And if I can restate the motion, my understanding is to form a task force to recommend a protocol for selecting depositories. Did I get that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So this is not we're not approving this list tonight. We're going to form a task force to review the list and bring forward a recommendation at a later time.
That's my motion, yes.
Okay? We have a motion on the floor. Do we have any discussion? We'll go to Dave Davis. Dave?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess to start off, I have a question for our city finance officer. Pauline, will this cause any delay in any of the operation of our city finance office?
If I might, Mr. Mayor, no, it should not, because all but 2 of these are already on an approved list, so we are already authorized to do business with all but Bank West and Black Hills Community Bank at this time. So this would not delay anything other than being able to do business with those 2 financial institutions.
So the list that we have does not have an end date?
No, no, sir.
Okay, so one of the 2 that Bank West isn't, but the other one is actually a local bank that we'd be preventing the operations with if we went forward with this.
At this time, yes, sir.
Richie, I would like to offer a friendly amendment, but since I've asked a couple questions, I don't think I can. But I'll comment on what I'd like the friendly amendment to be, and I'll see if anyone takes the hint. I would really like to see us go ahead and approve the list that we have and move forward with the idea that you've brought ahead. I think they're both important that we approve the list and have our list of banks that are there. I don't think we should get caught in the trap that we've been caught so many times before with another ad hoc committee that goes on and goes on and goes on. On the other hand, I think setting a protocol is very important. Before we get to this point next year and these folks come and voice the same opinion and we haven't stepped forward, I think we owe that to them before that happens. So I would hope that we have the opportunity that protocol is explained so that we all know how the banks are chosen, not just the ones that are putting them on the list. And so hopefully there's a way that you can commingle those 2 thoughts. Thank you.
Ron Sasso.
Okay, I will put an amendment, offer up an amendment as Councilman Davis suggested, that we move forward with the current list and then proceed to form the task force and evaluate that list. And
when you say moving forward with the current list, you mean the list as amended with
as
the 2
as
additional
amended,
banks?
yes.
Okay. So we have, this is an amendment to Richie's motion, and we have a motion to amend by Sasso and a second by Brown. So now we are going to be discussing the amendment, which is to proceed with approving this list, and the original motion will stay intact, that will be setting up a committee to review the overall process. Okay, you still have the floor.
Okay, thank you. For Pauline Sumption, one question that I had looking at our list and the disbursement as far as the figures, and it appears the overwhelming majority of our funds are local. The bulk of the money is in Pioneer Bank and Trust. Could you just share that choice and why?
I don't have all of the historical knowledge on this. I'm trying to gather additional information. However, I do know that a number of years ago, the finance office did go out for RFPs. At the time, they were the bank in town that offered the highest interest rate and the least amount of fees. And they are also local, where when you call them, you get to talk to a person, and if there's an issue, the problem is taken care of locally. And that was one of the, those were all taken into account in the decision-making process. As far as why we continue to, they are still the bank that gives us the highest return on our dollars that are sitting in their account.
Thank you.
Jerry Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. I support the amendment, and I just want to clarify for the record and for our audience that my understanding that Pioneer Bank is loaned by a local family, has been for years, has grown, but it's loaned by a family that had property on Sharon Lake Road, and they're in the northern part of the Black Hills. So they are a local bank, and they're big, and they've been a good bank. And I don't think it's necessary to pick on them, because I think they've done a great job. I think other banks have done a good job for us, too. I support the amendment. Thank you.
Bonnie Peterson.
Back to unplugging.
Thank you. I would like some clarification from the, about this motion. I believe that we need to have a time set that this is reported back, because I don't think the people that are here tonight want this to go on and just be looked at next year again. I think they want some action taken to relook and revisit, not just decide on the protocol. So how can we phrase this so that this comes back and we relook at it, say in 90 days or 60 days? I think that would be more in tune to meeting and supporting the shop local and bank local that the citizens want. And I believe that we agree with, as Mr. Kadis said, that when he worked with startup businesses, it was the local banks that were able to step up and help these small businesses get a start, whereas the larger national banks were much less willing to do so. And I think so that this also plays a role in how we want to grow our economy and help support businesses and employment. So I guess my question is, in your motion, is this to come back and for us to look at it, or do we need to make an amendment to that? Thank you.
We'll go to Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. If it's all right with the people that are making the seconds and the substitute motion, or, no, excuse me, the friendly amendments, excuse me, if it's all right with them, we'll place a time frame of 60 days on there, if that's okay with the people that made the seconds to this and the amendments. Is that all right to make it in that form, Mayor?
It is. Is that okay with the motion maker and the seconder of the amendment? Okay, so now the amendment includes to approve the list and also set a time frame of approximately 60 days for the recommendations to come back to presumably go in finance.
Correct.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion to amend? Richie, you still have the floor.
Mayor, I think I'll stand for questions if there's anyone else that has some more questions.
Charity Doyle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Quick question. Did we already outline what this committee would be comprised of, or who this committee would be comprised of? That you heard? Dave, Richie, anybody? What did the motion makers have in mind with respect to the composition of this committee would be my question.
Sure.
Richie, can you?
If I may, Mayor, thank you. I'm open for suggestions as to who would like to be on the committee, but normally, my understanding of it is that the mayor can appoint committee members or even citizens to this committee. But I would, I guess, first of all, I would be willing to seek volunteers from the dais that are interested in this, but I'd also be willing to help out on this to see what is transpiring from this, because I've done a little bit of homework on this, so and need to do further study on this. So at least I can offer up my services to help out on this, get that started. So I'll be looking for other volunteers from the council as well.
Thank you, Richie. Are you okay with that?
Yeah,
we can put the committee together after this passes.
One more time.
We can put the committee together after this passes.
Yeah, I think my recommendation is that my office would do a press release this week inviting people to apply, and we wouldn't be able to have the names together by next week's Legal and Finance meeting. So it would be the Legal and Finance meeting after that to be approved by the council. So the committee would be in place by the first council meeting in February. And hopefully by April, we would have a recommendation.
May I throw an idea out there?
Sure.
I'm just thinking in terms of the fact that we were elected here to do exactly this. Is this something that the council could handle, a subcommittee within the council that we can look at with the aid of staff, just to save time, lessen the amount of people so we can just really get rolling with it? Just something to consider, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. And we'll go to Jordan Mason.
Thank you, Mayor. Given that it's kind of clear at this point that we have two different issues, I'd like to make a call for dividing the question, if possible.
The question's already been, well, we could do that. We have a motion to amend to approve the list, and part of that motion is to set a 60-day time frame for the committee. So
Okay.
So would you still like to divide the question, or are you okay with the amendment as it's?
I guess I'm fine with the amendment.
Okay. Any further discussion? Just make sure we're all on the same page. The motion is to amend to approve the current list, which adds 2 banks, Bank West and Black Hills Community Bank, and also sets an approximated 60-day time frame for the committee to bring forward its recommendation to Legal and Finance once they've been appointed. Any further discussion? All in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, the motion has been amended, and the original motion on the floor was to form a committee, and the amendment approves the list and also the a 60-day time frame. Any further discussion on the amended motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. It's a good discussion. We will now go to items 36 through 57, non-consent. We would like to have a motion to open public comment. Motion by Brown, second by Roberts to open public comment on 36 through 57. All in favor of opening public comment, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I have one speaker request form, and this is on item 50. And I'd like to recognize Adam Thompson, representing the Rapid City Ranger Band. Adam?
Good evening. My name is Adam Thompson, and I had the honor to play in the Rapid City Ranger Band this past summer. I played the alto saxophone. Here are the reasons why the Ranger Band should continue to be funded. It gives a chance for musicians in high school to get involved with the marching program for the summer. I learned how to stay in step and memorize music easily. The Ranger Band is made up of Stevens and Central students. This is a good way for our two schools to do something together without the rivalry. I made friends through this program. The Ranger Band is like an ambassador for Rapid City. We go to the parades and we play 4 songs that we memorized for the people's enjoyment. People love music and marching bands. I had people come up to me after the Days of 76 parade in Deadwood saying thank you, or you guys are really good. If you looked at the 2 cents worth in the Rapid City Journal, people were commenting on us on our performance or just saying thank you for coming. Music is an enjoyable thing and people love it. When marching, some people whoop and holler because of the song we are playing or just how good we are. If indeed this needs to be cut, it would be nice for Mr. Downs to have a 1 year's notice, then he could have time to do some fundraising. The bottom line is that marching bands make people feel patriotic, and they love them. Thank you.
We do not have any further speaker request forms on items 36 through 57. Is there anyone that wanted to speak on items 36 through 57? Seeing none, do we have a motion to close public comment for those items? Motion by Roberts, second by Doyle to close public comment on 36 through 57. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. We'll now go to item number 36. Jordan.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 36 is first reading ordinance number 5780, an ordinance to amend the established parking zones in the City of Rapid City by amending section 10.44.010 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, and I move to approve.
Motion by Mason, second by Doyle. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries. Item 37, Jordan.
Item 37 is first reading ordinance number 5784, an ordinance to establish free parking in the parking ramp zone on Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays by amending section 10.44.070 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, and I move to approve.
Motion by Mason, second by Doyle. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries. Item 38.
Item 38 is first reading ordinance number 5785, an ordinance to establish free parking and metered spaces in the parking ramp zone on Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays by amending section 10.44.050 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, and I move to approve.
Motion by Mason and a second by Doyle, and we'll recognize Bonnie Peterson. Bonnie?
Hi, thank you very much. I just wanted to say to the employees that we know this is going to be a change for them and that it's an inconvenience. However, it's just very important for all of us to realize that it is the people that pay the taxes that pay all of our salaries and our benefits. And making these changes are going to help those people that are going to be coming in to pay those taxes to have a better outcome, and therefore bringing in the money that we need. So essentially, all of these people that we try to serve, they are the ones that pay all of our bills. And anyway, I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Any further discussion? The motion for item 38 is to approve. All in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries. Item 39.
Item 39 is first reading ordinance number 5786, an ordinance to amend the parking zones included in the parking meter time limit ordinance by amending section 10.44.060 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, and I move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mason, second by Doyle. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries. Item 40.
Item 40 is first reading ordinance number 5781, an ordinance to change the assistant city attorney position from an appointed position to an employee position by amending section 2.16.030 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, and I move to approve.
Motion by Mason, second by Sasso. Any discussion? Ron Sasso.
I just wanted to say that glad that this is moving ahead and starting to depoliticize some of the positions. So thank you.
Any further discussion on item 40? Motion is to approve. All in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries. Item 41.
Item 41 is first reading ordinance number 5782, an ordinance to change the assistant finance officer position from an appointed position to an employee position by amending section 2.40.150 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, and I move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mason, second by Nordstrom. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries. Item 43.
Item 42, first reading ordinance number 5783, an ordinance to change the city engineer position from an appointed position to an employee position by amending section 2.44.070 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, and I move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion by Mason and an enthusiastic second by Roberts. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries. 43.
Item 43 is first reading ordinance number 5787, an ordinance to correct the appointment process of officers by amending section 2.040.010 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, and I move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mason and second by Doyle. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries. Item 44.
Item 44 is second reading ordinance number 5777, an ordinance to prohibit vehicle operators from parking next to curbs painted yellow by amending section 10.40.020 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, and I move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Mason and a second by Doyle. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries.
Item 45 is second reading ordinance number 5778, an ordinance to add a time for removal of mountain pine beetle infested trees by adding section 12.40.105 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, and I move to approve.
We have a motion by Mason and a second by Doyle. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries. 46.
Item 46 is first reading ordinance number 5788, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, and this is rezoning from no use district to general commercial located at 1700 Cedar Drive, and I move to approve.
Motion by Mason, second by Doyle. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries. 47.
Item 47 is first reading ordinance 5789, and this is a rezoning from office commercial district to general commercial district, and this is located at the intersection of East Anamosa Street and Elkville Road, and I move to approve.
We have a motion by Mason, second by Sasso. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries.
Item 48 is first reading ordinance 5790, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, and this rezoning from mobile home residential to light industrial district, and this is located at northeast of the intersection of Cedar Drive and Dias Avenue, and I move to approve.
Motion by Mason and a second by Doyle. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries.
Item 49 is first reading ordinance 5791, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, and this is rezoning from commercial agricultural district to light industrial district, and this is located on the south side of East Anamosa Street, southeast of the intersection East Anamosa Street and North Creek Drive, and I move to approve.
Motion by Mason, second by Doyle. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries. Item 50, Jordan.
Item 50 is approved community investment subsidy recommendations from the Allied Arts for $95,000, and I move to approve.
We have a motion by Mason and a second by Roberts for approval, and we'll first go to Richie Nordstrom. Richie?
Thank you, Mayor. If I may make a motion to alter this funding that we have lined up for the Allied Arts City Subsidy Dispersal, I would like to see the Ranger Band brought back to the level that they were at prior to this meeting. That is to the level of $10,800. And that's my motion. If I get into second, I would like to continue, Mayor.
Do we have a second to the substitute motion, which is essentially to approve the previous list?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion by Nordstrom and a second by Wright to approve the...
I'm sorry, say that. Yes, I'm sorry, 10-3, not 10-8.
Okay.
Yep.
So we have a motion on the floor to go with the previous list. Okay. And you still have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I can't make any other stronger suggestions than what Mr. Adam Thompson made up here at the podium. I think we need to give Mr. Downs a little bit more time to have an opportunity to do the adjustments that are being asked of us at the city council level. To me, this is a cut in the wages for the band members or the stipend that the students are getting. There's approximately 50 to 55 students that receive the stipend, which is about $8,800 or $8,300, excuse me. That is split amongst the 50-plus students. The remaining $2,000 is used for travel to 4 out-of-town events, and I can stand to be corrected on that. And I would also like to continue encouraging the students to keep applying for this position or these positions within this band. The students are paid to attend the rehearsals and parades, plus they get a bonus for having perfect attendance. Keep in mind that the parades are just not fair weather events. The students can be in very extreme hot weather or cold weather, and in sometimes even very windy elements that the students encounter. I'm concerned that this council is setting the tone, and if you earn a wage from the city, you will be criticized for making too much money. During our campaign, I was criticized for wanting to create jobs and help create jobs. This is what I will continue to do. To our citizens, I continue to wonder what this cut in wages has to say to our citizens that are making a wage from the city. I believe that we as the city have a larger responsibility than just infrastructure, and this is one of those responsibilities. The message this city council is sending to the community is that you are on notice if you are an art or an artist that is being invested by the city. My message is to the arts community is to please continue to do what you do, because it appears your support is waning with this council. To the leaders of the Ranger and the municipal bands, do not take your role for granted. You will need to work harder and continue to earn your investments. I'll yield the floor, Mayor.
Thank you, Richie. Dave Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Richie, I support the sentiment, but I would like to offer a substitute motion. And the substitute motion basically follows the same lines, that we return back to the recommendations from Allied Arts of 1122, with the exception that the Ranger Band does, in essence, the Ranger Band was asking for the same amount of money as their budget last year, and yet we cut the Allied Arts 5%. So I think it's only fair that we look at a 5% cut to the Ranger Band for this year. So my recommendation would be then, my motion would be, is that we take a 5% cut from that 10.3 from the Ranger Band this year, with the expectation that the Ranger Band understand that Allied Arts is going to take a hard look at them next year, and that the Ranger Band, just like all of the other organizations that Allied Arts is involved with, is their own fundraising program, and that the city simply is providing a subsidy rather than your main source of funds. I think that's. I think my motion was over. Thank you, Bonnie.
Dave, can I ask for clarification on your motion? It's to reduce the 10,300 by 5%. Do you want to ask Allied Arts to bring back a reallocation of that 5%? Otherwise, that 5% of the 10.3 will just come back to the city.
I think that Allied Arts can go ahead and use that as they see. They've already reallocated, so yes, for them to reallocate that 5%.
So that will need to come back then for reallocation. And that's okay with
it needs to stay in the arts. The whole 95,000 needs to stay in the arts.
So everyone understands we now have a third motion on the floor. It's a substitute motion, supersedes all the other motions, and that's to approve all of this except for we're going to do a 5% cut of the $10,300, and then Allied Arts will come back with recommendations for reallocating that 5%. The rest of the list will be approved. Okay? Jerry Wright. You have the floor.
Sidebar.
Bonnie, second. Okay.
I might add, I'd be willing to help them. Excuse me. I'd be willing to help them do their fundraising in any way I can, but I support Dave's motion.
Okay. Bonnie Peterson.
Thank you. I totally support the Allied Arts' ability to allocate these funds, and that's what we have to move to is for them to do the allocation as they see fit. However, I spoke with the chamber and the CVB, and their budget has already been set for this coming year, so it's going to be hard for them to try to find some extra money to help support this band. And I appreciate Mr. Davis' motion because I think this is going to serve that we're having to make tough decisions, and we can probably give this another ride for this year, but that everyone should be on notice that none of us are immune. Hopefully our economy is improving, but we certainly hear a lot of negativity for the global market. And so as a city, and because we want to maintain and continue to be a great city that we are, we, like our forefathers, have to be as frugal as possible. And I support the Allied Arts and for them to be able to do this funding. I think, though, Mr. Davis has shown us a way to help keep these kids going in the summertime, and then hopefully next year they will have more funding for themselves. Thank you.
Charity Doyle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question for Deidre Boudall, if I may. I know you didn't want to come and not get to say anything, Deidre.
I was hoping I'd slip under the radar.
I know. I'm sorry. My question for you is the way I'm hearing the discussion progress up here is that we're just about ready to approve the allocations as you've redistributed them. Right now, as it stands, encompassed in that $95,000, that reduction of 5% is only a $2,000 allotment to the Ranger Band. My question is, if we go and approve this without giving you time to redistribute these, is that going to cause a problem, or how can we?
I guess as I understood it, we were going back to the original allocation, and rather than giving the Ranger Band $10,300, it would be reduced by 5% there, which would then, that 5% would be reallocated.
Well, what I'm saying is that the recent list that we have, because there's the original allocation of $95,000. Oh, is that what you mean?
Yeah.
I gotcha.
So the revised is going to go away. It'll change again.
Okay, and that's not going to cause problems in any of these other areas? Because I know some other areas went up and went down. I mean, have these numbers been shown to everybody else? Are you going to create any contention?
I mean, other than being in the newspaper. But we've told everybody that I believe that some of the groups that are part of Allied Arts have seen this, and we told everyone that this was not final. We're still pending approval with the city council, and it very well could change again.
Okay.
So,
and then my request from you, and again, what is your position with Allied Arts?
I'm the chair of the city subsidy committee.
And I know that there has been a lack of direction from the council in the last recent history, if you will, of this organization. I'm going to ask you to get together with your committee and come forward with things that you feel you need direction on, so that we can do this without picking out one single entity within that Allied Arts Fund.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just to make sure we're all on the same page, the motion that's currently on the floor approves the original set of recommendations that came forward a few weeks ago, with a 5% cut for the Ranger Band, and that 5% will be, at a future meeting, will then be reallocated, but we would need to approve the reallocation of that 5%. But the plan is to approve the rest of the list and 95% of the Ranger Band allocation. The remaining 5% will need to be reallocated, and that will come back one more time. Are we all on the same page? No?
We'll just give it to the administration.
That would be fine. Somehow
Give it to
Pauline, can I ask you a question? We're talking about $515. Would that need to come back to the council for approval? Or can we leave it to the discretion of them to tell you how that's $515 is to be reallocated?
Technically, the way the process works, it needs to come back to the council. So I request that if you want them to reallocate that 5%, that you not approve anything tonight and just let them come back with the new list with the reallocation, because otherwise we could be cutting checks and then a week later give them a little $15 more if that's what ends up being their one quarter or whatever. So
I support that.
Okay.
I support that.
Are we, so that's okay, it's okay with the motion maker and the seconder to just take the $515, that 5% of the Ranger Band's amount, and put it in the administrative section for use by Allied Arts. And that's okay with the seconder. That's now the motion on the floor. Go to Ron Sasso.
Thank you, Mayor. Couple thoughts. One, I wanted to commend Adam Thompson for speaking so well and doing such a great job. He's also a very talented guitarist, so something most people don't know here. But that said, one of the things that I think when we look at the Allied Arts, the reason that things moved from the council making the decision was to put it in the hands of the Allied Arts. And here we're still making those decisions and going back and forth with that. personally, I would like to see, if we're going to say we're going to pay Allied Arts to make that decision, and that we say, okay, here's the money, you make that decision, you bring it forward. Because just from that standpoint that, we have, I'm sure there are lots of organizations that are going to continue pulling us all different ways. And the Ranger Band maybe, I think, is a good entity. We've asked a lot of questions, gotten some answers, and looking at reducing it just that 5%, that in and of itself is just saying that the players will be paying for their $6.50 uniforms for the most part. But I think we have to, as a council, make a decision. What are we doing? Are we going to continue saying, you bring this forward to us and we'll nitpick it and we'll make changes, or are we going to give Allied Arts the authority, more authority to make those decisions and those cuts?
Steve Laurenti.
I just wanted to state initially, just to put some context into my words, but because I have boys that play violin, or I should say men, they're getting that old, and I'm getting that old, but that have played at the All-State Orchestra level more than once, and so I have a great appreciation for all of these different groups. What I have a big problem with in supporting these groups is the use of taxpayer money to subsidize them. I would love to see these groups, and I would like to say, and I think it's been said before, that these groups need to be on notice that they need to start thinking about how they're going to be able to fund themselves more in the private sector. And I'd be more than willing to donate to the Allied Arts Fund, and I know there are thousands of people in Rapid City that would be more than willing to do so as well. And for me, it's just a matter of our role as a government. Again, I love these groups and I love what they do, and I have a great appreciation for what they do, but I just don't believe that that needs to be subsidized by the taxpayers' money. And these groups need to know that we're going to be making harder decisions in 2013 and going forward, and I would love to see these groups be 100% self-funded through private groups and private organizations who love these groups as much as I do. And so I just wanted to make that comment, and I'm hoping that my colleagues, as we move into the 2013 budget, that we will begin to wean these different groups off of the taxpayers' money so that we can get back to the job that government was supposed to do, which is infrastructure and public safety. And we have dire needs in those areas, and we've asked a lot of those critical areas to tighten their budgets, even while we are subsidizing these groups with the taxpayers' money. I yield the floor. Thank you.
Jordan Mason.
Thank you, Mayor. And I do hate to bother Ms. Budal, but Ms. Budal, just so I'm clear, but the second recommendations for the allocations, now that's coming from the Allied Arts Fund, is that correct?
Mine will next.
Or, I'm sorry.
The revised, you mean?
Yes.
Yes,
And that was decided by that committee, correct?
correct.
Okay. Just to recap, but when you came up here the first time, and you said that there was that committee was looking for support from the council. Can you maybe clarify on what you meant by that?
Well, as I had mentioned before, there are several groups that have an ordinance that establishes what funding level they're supposed to have, or there's been a long-standing gentleman's agreement with the city on what they're supposed to be getting, and so we've been doing our best to honor those while still supporting other organizations that do contribute to the arts in the community.
And because of the funding and not being able to reallocate it, as is the current motion, will that affect your ability to support those other organizations that you're referencing?
No.
Okay. Just to kind of make sure that I'm clear, but the RC Ranger Band how much of their funding is being subsidized by the city? Do you happen to know?
Last year, I believe all but $100.
Okay, so it's essentially fully funded. Is there any other organization on this list that is fully funded?
Yes. The municipal band, and I believe that's it.
Okay, so there's only 2 organizations.
Yep.
Really appreciate that. I just wanted to kind of get a better sight picture of this. Part of my concern is that, as one of my fellow colleagues here has often pointed out, is about the message that we're sending out to the community. And the current action that we're taking or attempting to take kind of bothers me about the message that we're taking, because we have a committee of people that deal with this as their specialty. And they've come back to us after giving them the go-ahead to make recommendations on reallocating the funding as they saw fit. And they came back to us. Now we're saying that we don't like those recommendations and we don't like that allocation, and now we're going to send it back again. I think the term mixed messages here is probably an appropriate term to use. In addition, also thinking about some of the statements made by Adam Thompson, and I do admire the young man for stepping up to the plate and saying what he had to, but he points out that it involves an after-school function. And Mr. Laurenti may have a point here that I'm all for extracurricular activities at schools, and I appreciate what the school system does with our young people with extracurricular activities. But as it was described, that's what it sounds like, is something that is taking place out of our high schools that may be better suited maybe for our schools to handle. I'll yield the floor to the rest of my colleagues to make comments, but I think it's pretty clear that this has been an ongoing issue. It's something that I think we should look at and should address. Thank you.
Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. If I may respond to a couple of comments that have been made here just recently, is that not supporting the arts and hoping that they can go out on their own and do it. I don't know of very many arts or musicians, artists, people that have their craft out there in front of the public that can fully support themselves on a level that we're speaking of. I don't know of one yet that is able to do that. Granted, there are other entities within the allied arts that are able to do something along that line, but they are at a different level experience-wise. Involvement in the community aspect and the leadership that they have is just a little bit different than what these 2 organizations have. So I don't think we'll ever be able to get the arts to be totally self-sufficient. I heard this group, the Allied Arts group, come to the Legal and Finance as more of an appeal to the, first of all, the Legal and Finance, and then later on to the full council as an appeal to us to give them assistance or guidance on and to coming up with how the funding should be allocated, and that's the way I heard it coming from the Allied Art Group, and the idea that we need to start cutting back on some of these subsidies, and I call them investments, I think is appropriate, but we need to give them time to have the opportunity to make up that deficiencies that we're going to be allocating to them. And I can support the 5% cutback that we're going to be doing on that, but keep in mind that the arts will never be really self-sufficient. The other comment that was made is that this is an after-school program. If the trying to compare this with sports and other activities out there, we cannot, if I understand all the high school collegiate rules and everything that goes along that area, if we started paying those athletes, for example, or other groups similar to that, they would become professionals or semi-pro, and that's not allowed under those elements or those institutions. So with the students in the bands getting subsidized or getting a stipend, I can support that. That is totally different. We've heard some other comments, sidebar comments about my kids didn't get this uniform, or I couldn't get my parents couldn't afford a uniform for me for this different activity. I guess what I didn't hear is that request coming from those other entities that are making these comparisons. And the Ranger Band has been around for a number of years, and we've been able to support that in the past. And so I'm just seeing this as this whole thing as an appeal from the Allied Arts, not a demand or anything like that, but just simply an appeal. Thank you, Mayor. I'll yield the floor.
And we'll go to Gary Brown. Are there any objections to calling the question? Any objections? Seeing none, the question has been called. Everyone understands the motion on the floor?
Would you read it, please?
Okay.
We're clear.
The motion is to approve the original set of recommendations that had come to the council a couple of weeks ago with a 5% cut to the Ranger Band, and that 5% would be reallocated to the Allied Arts Administrative section. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Roll call, please.
Wright.
Aye.
Lorente. No. Nordstrom. Mason. No. Doyle. Sasso. No. Davis. Peterson. Roberts. No. Brown.
Aye.
5-4.
Okay, we need 6 votes to spend money. Is that correct, Tamara? The motion.
Wait for Charity.
Okay. Charity, we have a 5-4 vote, and we need 6 votes to spend money. The motion on the floor is. Aye. Okay.
Thank you.
6-4, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, item 51.
Item 51 is approve the request from DTH LLC to waive the requirements to immediately install sidewalks at Alma Street, North Ridge Drive, Sedgewood Street, and Gladys Street. I move approval.
We have a motion by Brown and a second by Doyle for approval of item number 51. Go to Jerry Wright.
I support the motion, but while looking up at it, I noticed, and I have to publicly comment, that we need to do a better job of enforcing our erosion control program citywide and not single out any one developer, but it must be done to protect our waters and comply with the state and federal law. Thank you.
Any further discussion? The motion is for approval. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Pauline, bids.
First item for bid is the water reclamation facility pretreatment plant, I believe. Sorry, I don't have my agenda with me. And we received 6 bids on this. The recommendation is to award the total bid in the amount of $1,572,880 to Glacier Construction Company, Inc. May I add, I'm sorry, that this needs to be contingent upon the approval and award of the South Dakota DENR as well, because it's SRF money.
Motion by Nordstrom, second by Peterson to award the bid contingent on DNR approval. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Next item is the 2011 ADA compliance project. The recommendation is to award the base bid plus alternates 1 and 2 to Brewer Construction in the amount of $37,465.40.
Motion by Peterson, second by Roberts to award to Brewer Construction. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Pauline. Item number 54, under Mayor's items, this is an announcement on the Synthetic Drug Abuse Forum on January 24, 2012. This will be at the Journey Museum on Tuesday, January 24, starting at 6 p.m. It's sponsored by Lifeways Coalition. Our police department, South Dakota DCI, will also be involved. Officer LaHaye from our police department brought this to my attention, and he and others are working on this. This is really becoming a terrible problem in our society, and it's a problem in our community as well with synthetic and prescription drug abuse. So wanted to announce this forum and encourage council members to attend and encourage the community to attend as well. And we'll recognize John Roberts.
Do you mind if I ask our police chief a couple questions about this? Because I didn't realize just how big of a problem this was becoming until I talked to a few of your officers. I was wondering maybe you could inform us a little on it.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, it is a emerging problem. It seems to be multiplying daily, and we've talked to our friends in the medical community who say that there's at least one medical emergency attributed to things that are termed as synthetic marijuana or other synthetic drug type of drugs. And so obviously it's a workaround to the organic drugs that are already illegal, marijuana and cocaine and so on. And so there's now synthetic copies of these things being produced and given cute names like bath salts and other incense and whatever else. So I can tell you that we're going to see more and more on this subject, and that probably every year now for the next few years we're going to see the legislature battling with it. That's just my prediction, because it is a big deal. It's the next big deal.
Thank you very much, Steve. I found out about this, how badly this is starting to affect us recently, too. And I had noticed that we had had a lot of people going through some very serious withdrawal issues within the jail, and come to realize some of these people are on these synthetic drugs. And this is, like our chief of police said, this is going to become a very, very serious problem here in Rapid. So I think we need to get a handle on it right away. I think that this would be something that all of us council members should go to. I have it on my calendar already. I think the more informed that we are, hopefully the more we can help the people of Rapid City. So thank you very much.
Thank you, John. We'll go to Ron Sasso.
And just to give people an idea, on bath salts, that was something that on the medical detox task force, that when I started hearing the term bath salts, I was thinking, okay, what is this? And basically the chemical composition has qualities that are similar to cocaine and methamphetamine, and as quickly as it is growing, actually the National Institute on Drug Abuse indicated at the beginning of 2011, the first month of 2011, the number of emergency room visits exceeded the entire previous year. So it is something that is really starting to tax our system as well with detox and police. So more information, that more people understand it, the better off we are. Thank you.
And one more time, this forum will be held on Tuesday, January 24 at the Journey Museum, starting at 6 p.m. and it will run to 7:30. And it's open to the public at no charge, and refreshments will be served. I want to encourage all of you to attend. Do we have a motion to acknowledge? Motion by Sasso, second by Nordstrom. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Item 56A, length of terms. Gary Brown, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. As fellow councilmen all recall, we had voted to, in January, hold in our wards meetings to have a public forum and set up, find out about how the people in our wards feel about the length of term issue. Well, push has come to shove. Now's the time to get it done, get those meetings set up, and get something settled on the dates. The suggestion has been made. We do them all wards, one day. I'd also like to suggest we do it just at one time. There had been suggested doing twice a week. I can't make the motion, but what makes sense to me is doing it on a Saturday. You can set it up in the morning or the afternoon. My gut tells me to do it like from 9 to 11. It gives, in the afternoon, leaves the whole afternoon free. People already up and around 9 to 11. Doesn't cut into the lunch hour. And hopefully we could get it taken care of then. The date that seems to fit everybody's schedule is Saturday, the 14th. So I'd like to open it up to the floor for discussion by my fellow aldermen.
Thank you, Gary, and we'll recognize Dave Davis. Dave.
14th, Saturday, 14th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to entertain that motion that we would have these town hall meetings on Saturday morning, January 14th. Is that the correct date? 14th, from 9 to 11. This would be the Saturday morning prior to when the Cracker Barrels start. It would be a good way to get that whole season started off. We do them all 5 wards simultaneously, so it should be easy for everyone to get behind and promote that. So that would be my motion.
We have a motion by Davis and a second by Wright. And if I could mention something, if it's all right with everyone, I'd like to see if we can assign the senior alderman from each ward to identify the location by the end of this week to let my office know, and then we will send out one press release with all 5 wards and the locations. So if the senior alderman from each ward could please identify the location, let my office know by absolutely no later than noon on Friday, and we will send out the announcement. Okay. Bonnie Peterson.
I had a question for the motion maker. Starting 9 to 11, could we just set this at 9 o'clock? Because this is supposed to be a single issue item, and I'm just wondering if we're to stay there for people to come between 9 and 11, or we start the meeting at 9, and then if nobody comes, then we leave by 10, or do you think it's best that we stay and man there from 9 to 11? I'm just throwing that out for discussion, if what we should. Yes, and of course anyone can weigh in. I'm just wondering what you think would be adequate. Thank you.
I realize it's a single issue, but I think we need to tell the public what the time frame is. Otherwise, we'll be there. For one thing, if you don't say 9 to 11, it might mean 9 to 3. And so if it's like any meeting, if you don't tell folks how long it's going to be, you have no control over how long it might run into. The second side is that I don't think that this issue is going to be one where it's an open house. It starts at 9, and I think that's the way it's going to be promoted. So the meeting starts at 9 and will close at 11.
Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 57, Vision Fund update. Terry Waltersdorf.
There are no additions again this month. We will not submit an update next month as the Vision Committee is meeting to review the list of projects. It'll be the following month before we have another update.
Okay. And just a reminder for everyone, there will be a Vision meeting or Vision Fund meeting on January 23. It's a Monday night at 6:30 p.m. All right, we'll move on to items 58 through 62. These are our public hearing items. We have a motion to open public hearing on items 58 through 62. So moved. Do you have a second? Second. Motion by Mason, second by Nordstrom to open public comment on items 58 through 62. We do not have any speaker request forms. We will keep the public hearing item open, and looks like all we have are consent items. Okay. Would anybody like to remove any of the items 58 through 62 from consent? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve items 58 through 62? We have a motion by Roberts and a second by Brown to approve items 58 through 62. All in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries. Item 63.
The bill list is unchanged from that which is attached, so the total dollar amount is $5,131,784.83.
We have a motion. Motion by Roberts, second by Laurenti to approve. All in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries. Do we have a motion to adjourn? We have a motion by Roberts, second by Brown to adjourn. All in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Happy New Year.